Welcome back to IAS Net Study. This is the ethics series and this is the 27th video in this ethics series. We were discussing moral philosophy, the fifth unit, and we have completed evolution. We have talked about bird view. Now we are going to take up the third level of discussion, and in this third level, we are going to have a detailed analysis or a detailed discussion of important moral thinkers here. And let's start Western moral thinkers, Western moral philosophy. And once we are done with Western moral philosophy, we are going to talk about Eastern side also, especially Indian philosophy also. And if you look at the Western moral thinkers, it has been bifurcated into four important categories: ancient, medieval, modern, and contemporary. Ancient, usually we consider from 650 BCE to 5th century AD, and then medieval comprises from 5th century to 16th century, and then the modern we have 16th century to 1960. After 1960, it is contemporary. And here in this video, we are going to focus on ancient Western moral thinkers. And one common aspect you need to focus with respect to Western ancient moral thinkers, it is with respect to virtue. And all these, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, predominantly we are going to focus on these people. And all these three ancient thinkers, they are called virtue ethicists. I mean to say that the morality or ethical framework of an action or decision is decided by virtues. If your actions are based on virtues, ultimately it is considered your actions, your decisions are considered ethical. If it's not, it is considered unethical. And there are such slight variations between consideration of virtues with respect to Socrates, with respect to Plato, and with respect to Aristotle. We are going to discuss about that in detail. So, what you have to remember is that ancient thinkers, philosophers, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, mainly these three important personalities you have to remember, and these three are virtue ethicists, right? So let's get into the discussion of ancient philosophers. First important eminent personality here is Socrates. The four important aspects, even during the word view, I told you that you need to remember four important aspects when it comes to Socrates. Even if the question comes in the examination, these four are very, very much important. You have to mention in your answer. The first is rationalist. Rationalist. Socrates is a rationalist. Rationalist is that your decisions or your analysis or your actions are based on logical reasoning. You decide whether an action is moral or immoral based on logical reasoning. And when you decide your actions, morality, ethical framework based on logical reasoning, based on rationality, based on reasons, then it is moral rationalism. And here, Socrates, he questioned the status quo. He also taught these two disciples, he taught these things to the young people at that point of time, that you have to question the status quo. Don't accept superstition, don't accept blind belief. You have to question everything. If you are convinced that these actions, these decisions are ethical, there is a moral backing to it, then only you imply or you apply in your life. Or else, otherwise, if you think that something is wrong, if you think that there is a factor of immorality, there is a factor of unethical nature, then you have to reject it. So your actions, there should be a backing of logical reasoning. So rational is the first aspect, first and foremost aspect. Socrates challenged accepted norms. At the social level, at the society level, there were accepted norms. People were blindly following it, they were not questioning it. Ruling elites, they have told that you have to follow it, or religious doctrines have told you that you are supposed to follow this, and you are blindly following it. And Socrates told especially the younger population at that point of time that don't accept these kind of superstitions, these kind of blind beliefs. You question it, you analyze it, you apply your reasoning, then you get into a conclusion, then you decide whether there is a morality, whether there is a ethical framework in it. So he questioned the commonly held beliefs and exposing the ideas that lack moral reasoning and critical scrutiny. Rationalist, first point here. The second point, virtue ethics. Ethicist, I told you that if your actions are backed by virtues, virtues are nothing but values, then it is considered ethical. But one thing you need to remember here is Socrates talked about one particular virtue, that is knowledge. He told that if your actions, if your decisions are based on the virtue of knowledge, then everything is positive, outcome is positive, and you are going in a positive way, you are taking a positive step. And he told that, see, even though you might say that there's a one virtue. How can you consider whatever the actions I do, it becomes ethical, it becomes moral in my conduct? His answer is that everything is based on knowledge. Knowledge is the base. On top of knowledge, other values and other virtues emerge. So if you have the knowledge, nothing but it's a wisdom, prudence. If you have the knowledge, then whatever the decisions you take, whatever the actions you take, it is not going to be immoral, because since there is a backing of knowledge, because of knowledge you have other virtues, and because of all these positive virtues, your actions are going to be moral, your actions are going to be ethical, your decisions are going to be ethical. So under virtue ethicists, he predominantly emphasized the value of knowledge, and that is the base above knowledge, or because of knowledge other attributes, other values, other virtues emerges. And see, if a person is doing something immoral or unethical, it is because there is no knowledge. Any knowledgeable person, any person with knowledge or wisdom is not going to do something wrong. If a person is committing something unethical, something immoral, because there is a factor of ignorance. Because of ignorance he is behaving in that manner, so it is lack of knowledge. So value or a attribute, knowledge as an attribute play a very important role with respect to Socrates philosophy here. So he held that knowledge is the highest virtue. For Socrates, to know what is right automatically leads to doing what is right. So if I know what is right, then I'm going to do what is right. My actions, my decisions are going to be positive. So I know that this is right thing, so eventually I do the right thing. If I know this is something wrong, eventually I'm not going to do that. I know that this is unethical and immoral, I'm not going to do that. So here the important virtue is knowledge here. And the third aspect you need to remember with respect to Socrates, that intellectual integrity or moral integrity. Moral integrity is that whatever I say, whatever I think, I'm going to say that. Whatever I say, I'm going to do that. And he told at that point of time, for the younger population, younger generation, younger kids, he told that you should not accept the status quo, you have to question everything. And he implemented that thing in his life also. So if you look at the entire life journey, he has been sentenced to death, and ruling the elites, they were angry against Socrates. They questioned him that you are corrupting the young minds, and all these things, allegations were there. And even the death sentence was awarded to him, but still he stood for his convictions. He told that I am ready to die for my convictions, I am not going to compromise with my values. So here, whatever he thought, whatever he said, he stood for it. Even in his actions, he stick to his convictions. There was a very much clarity into it. So this is intellectual integrity. So not only he said, he followed it, and he inspired other people also. So intellectual integrity, lived and died according to his principles, accepting death sentence rather than compromising his values. An enduring example of intellectual integrity and the courage to speak truth to power. This is the third important aspect you need to remember with respect to Socrates. And then fourth one is that with respect to governance. Governance, see, all these virtue ethicists, they were against democracy. Why? The reason is that all these Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, they told that in democracy people can be manipulated. When you manipulate people, you can trigger some kind of negative emotions, and because of these manipulation, because of these triggering all these unwanted emotions, unwanted confusions, eventually this is going to lead to the tyranny. So democracy, it is going to lead to the tyranny. Then what is the solution? Solution is that rulers should be philosophers. Ruler philosophers in the sense that I have to have a knowledge of what is right and what is wrong. If I have this moral knowledge, then I am going to implement in my conduct also. I am a ruler, I am a king. If I have this moral education, if I have that moral knowledge, then my conduct will also be ethical. My administration will be moral. So this is what all the three virtue ethicists, they subscribe to this idea of philosophical kings. They directly or indirectly they rejected this concept of democracy. So he mentions that Socrates told that ruler should have a great virtue, that is knowledge. Again, above knowledge is the base. On top of the knowledge, other virtues, other values, other positive attributes derive out of the knowledge. So this is the understanding. And let's go back to the same slide. See, Socrates, another aspect is I talked about virtue uh, entire philosophy, it is based on the virtues. So your ethical, moral framework, moral guidelines, everything is dependent on your virtues. Why is it very much necessary? See, these virtues, it leads to the good life, moral life, right? Every decisions, every actions is based by virtues. So eventually my actions will be positive, so I am going to give positive contribution to the society. At the same time, society is also going to respect me. So when there is a peace and respect, mutual admiration in the society, I will be having a good life. Good life eventually leads to the happiness in life. So virtues ultimately gives you the happiness in your life. One thing, I am happy, my social communication is happy, society is happy. On the whole, happy life, individual level and at the social level, right? This is another thing. And one more thing is, Socrates talked about ethical universalism. Ethical universalism. There is one truth, whatever the consequences, whatever the situation, truth is truth. Whether now or 500 years before, after 500 years, there is one truth. This is ethical universalism. So Socrates supported this ethical universalism, right? And another aspect with respect to virtues is that there are three understanding with respect to the virtues. I'll go to the next slide and I'll write it down here. There are three aspects virtues. First is, virtues are something you cannot learn from outside, it's there in your conscience. Virtues derive from conscience. And there are certain philosophers, certain school of thoughts, they tells that virtue can be learned through the observation. So I can inculcate virtues through observation around my surroundings or through the literature. So through observation, virtue can be inculcated. Right. This is another. Some of the philosophers subscribe to this thought process, and some school of thought support this. And there is a third way with respect to virtues. It is through education, through moral education. There are some philosophers who mentions that virtue can be taught like any other skills, even virtues, values, positive attributes. This can be taught to a person. But here Socrates, he stick to the first category. He mentions that virtue is nothing but the inner voice. It's already there inside you, and you're just enhancing it, or you are just giving a some concrete idea about these values and virtues. But it should be there. It should be present inside you in your subconscious. It should be there at the conscience level. So he subscribed to this idea of virtue is nothing but your inner voice. Virtue is nothing but your conscience. It's there in your conscience. Right. These are some of the teachings of Socrates. I think we have covered almost all the aspects. And also, he talked about one more thing, that is the principle of unity, unity of virtues. Here, he told that, as I told you, knowledge is the base. See, all the virtues comes are derived out of the knowledge. Here, all virtues derived from knowledge. If I possess one virtue, it means that I have all the virtues, because all these virtues are derived out of the knowledge. Even if I have one virtues, I will be having all these virtues. So this is what Socrates idea of principle of unity of virtues. And again, we have a principle of unity, the same concept in the Aristotle also. We are going to have a discussion there also. But understand that unity of virtues is that either you have all the virtues or you don't have any virtues. So, Socrates subscribed to this idea, and Aristotle also subscribed to this idea, right? So let's move to the next philosopher. I think that would be sufficient with respect to Socrates. Let's move to the next one. The next, it's Plato. Plato is the disciple of Socrates, and there are two important well-known works of Socrates. One thing, the dialogue or the discourse between Socrates and Plato, and another, Plato's own work. We have discussed all these things in the worldview. Now let's see the detailed understanding or detailed analysis of Plato's point of view. Again, Plato also virtue ethicist. So whatever Socrates told, there is an expansion or extended discussion, extended extension of ideas of Socrates can be seen, right? There is one change from Socrates is that he also emphasized on the virtues. But here, along with virtues, there should be action also. You have to take moral action also. One thing, I have the knowledge of virtues, what is right and what is wrong. Moral virtues, moral knowledge is there. Along with moral knowledge, there should be moral action also from my side. Then only I can uh, implement, or I can experience these ethical framework in my life at the individual level and at the social level. And here, there also in Socrates also, virtues eventually lead to the good life, eventually lead to the happy life. Here also he also tell the same thing, good life is nothing but virtuous life. So according to Plato also, living a good life, it means living a virtuous life. And there he talked about one particular virtue, that is knowledge. Socrates talked about knowledge. Based Knowledge is the base. On top of knowledge, other virtues usually derive or emerge out of it. But here Plato, he talked about four virtues. Along with that knowledge, he added three more virtues. Knowledge, he has given a different terminology. It's wisdom, knowledge, wisdom. It's, you can interchange actually. It's a core philosophy or core idea. It's the same thing. So along with knowledge, wisdom, there are three more values have been added. What are the three more values? Courage and temperance and justice. Right. So wisdom, knowledge, it makes you rational. So if you have knowledge, you are going to question it. You are going to put logical reasoning behind your actions and decisions. Not only your actions, even the social actions. So knowledge makes you rational. Socrates also talked about moral rationalism. Here also, there's some rationality has been mentioned by Plato's teaching also. So here, virtue of a rational part of a soul, virtue of the rational part of the soul here. And again, this wisdom, it includes knowledge, insight, foresight, ability to choose values over vices. All these things comes under wisdom. Then courage. Courage, one is physical courage, another thing is moral courage, and it compromises both these things, courage. And courage is also another virtue, and this is also very important part of this. Here, this aspect of this part of the soul, I am going to have in the next discussion. We are going to take up this. As of now, you remember that wisdom wisdom will lead to the rationality. And then courage, it's a physical courage as well as the moral courage is that, as you see in the Socrates, standing for your convictions. There, it was not explicitly mentioned by Socrates, even though he followed this in his personal life, but here Plato explicitly he mentioned the virtue. Courage is an important cardinal virtue here. Courage, both physical courage as well as the moral courage. Moral courage to stand for your convictions, to stand for your ideologies. Then we have a temperance. Temperance is nothing but, it is not subsistence. It is doing things in a moderation or a self control. This is what temperance is. That, so it is like regulated satisfaction of desire. This is also a virtue actually, not extravagance, not a deficiency. So temperance is another cardinal virtues mentioned by Plato. And the fourth virtue is that justice. So justice is achieved combination of all these three: temperance, courage, and the wisdom. When there is a congruence between these three, we are going to achieve the justice. Temperance, courage, and we have the first one. Yes, wisdom. When there is a congruence in all the three, eventually this lead to the justice. Right. So we talked about four cardinal virtues. Keep this thing in my mind, in your mind, and we are going to connect with two different aspects in future. And another aspect is these virtues cannot be derived from one another. In Socrates, what is that? You have knowledge and everything is derived out of it. But Plato takes a different stance here. He mentions that these are four cardinal virtues, different virtues. And it is not that one virtue derives from another. This is not the case here. All the virtues are different forms. It's not that if you have one virtue, you'll be having other virtue. It is not the case. It cannot be derived from one another. Right. Next, remember these four cardinal virtues. We are going to connect it in the next slide. As of now, we are going to talk about one concept called tripartite soul. In an individual soul, in a person, everybody has a soul, and soul, it has three important parts. One is appetitive. Appetitive is passion. Spirited, it is will. Rational, it is intellect. Remember that soul has three parts: intellect, will, and passion. So there should be a balance of all the three: intellect, will, and passion. When there is a balance, then happy soul, right? So soul has three parts: intellect, will, passion, and there should be a balance between these three things. Eventually this will lead to the happy soul. Happy soul, it means that happy person. Now we are going to extend this concept to the moral, individual, moral, and moral community. At personal level, I want to be happy, then there should be a balance of these three things. Now if I have to have a moral choice, if I have to have a moral life, for a happy life, these three things. If I have to have a moral life, I have to have a balance of three things. What are these balance of three things? We are going to talk about it. And if I want to have a, in my community, I'm living in a society, if I want to have a moral community, everybody behave in an ethical way, moral way, then also we need to have a balance of three things. What are these balance? We are going to talk about it. So in order to have a moral life, proper balance and integration of these parts is necessary. If there is a malfunction, see, if there is a malfunction in these things, I'm not going to be happy, my soul is not going to be happy. So eventually I'm not going to this is going to impact my happy life. So I'm not going to have a happiness in my life. So this is what happens. The same thing, if I want to have a, for happiness, I want these three things, there should be a balance. If I want to have a moral life, there should be a balance of these three things. If I want to have a moral community, there should be a balance of these three things. So here we are going to talk about, you see this particular picture here. So here, this, at the soul, if I want to have a happy soul, if I want to be happy, then it is intellectual, will, and the passion. There should be balance in all the three, then my soul will be happy. I can live a happy life. If I want to have a moral life, if I'm an individual, I want to have a moral life, then there are three cardinal virtues, whatever mentioned by Plato. This is important. What is wisdom? I have to have the wisdom, I have to have that knowledge, and there should be a courage, and there should be a temperance. If there is balance between these three, eventually this will lead to the moral life, because balancing these three create the atmosphere for justice. If there is a balance between wisdom, courage, and temperance, this will lead to the justice. So everybody performing their duties, this is going to create justice at the social level also. At individual level, there should be a balance between wisdom, there should be a balance between courage, there should be a balance between temperance. So at individual level, if I have all these things, then I am going to have a moral life. So let's see it from a community perspective. At the community level, rulers, they should have the wisdom. Guardians, they should have the courage. Artisans, they should have the temperance. So at soul level, these three virtues are important. At individual level, for moral life, these three virtues are important. At community level also, rulers, they should have certain virtue. Guardians, they should have certain virtues, and artisans, they should have certain virtues. So at the community level also, there should be balance of these three virtues: wisdom, courage, and temperance. When there is a balance, this will lead to the justice in society. If there is a justice, society becomes ethical. So this is the connection. Initially, we talked about Plato. The Plato talked about four cardinal virtues, and these four cardinal virtues can be implemented, can be seen at the soul level, at the individual level for moral life, and at the community level for ethical framework. Right, this is with respect to Plato. And let's see this particular slide also. Justice for individual and society. The four virtues apply to both individuals and society. This is what we had a discussion now. Just as a soul has three parts, state also has three classes. So three classes: rulers, guardians, and artisans. Three classes. Justice is achieved when each performs its proper functions, both at the individual level as well as the social level. A just state mirrors the just individual. It's exactly like soul level to individual level to community level. Everything is a mirror. And therefore, Plato believed that ideal society is ruled by philosopher kings who embodies wisdom. Again, the idea of democracy, he also tells that it will lead to the tyranny. So it should be state should be ruled by a philosopher king. Kings are the persons we who knows that what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is bad, what is evil and what is good. That awareness should be there. The morality, immorality, the idea of morality, immorality, the understanding of ethical and unethical. These ideas should be there for the rulers. So these are some of the teachings of Plato. And again, another aspect you need to remember here is ethical universalism. Socrates also talked about, supported the idea of ethical universalism. Plato also supported the ethical idea of ethical universalism. Right? This would cover Plato. And now let's move to the next philosopher, and Plato's ethical theory. So here Plato's he talked about, if I have to summarize, justice and happiness, it arise from well balanced soul. If there is a well balanced soul, there will be a moral individual, ethical individual. If there is ethical, everybody is ethical in a society, then eventually it will lead to the ethical society. So let's move to the next thinker, important philosopher, Aristotle. Yes, Aristotle, again. Aristotle is also a virtue ethicist. Uh, Socrates' disciple is Plato. Plato's disciple is Aristotle. Aristotle, he has given immense contribution to the various sectors, actually, metaphysics, logic, maths, from various sectors. He has given his contribution, and here in this discussion we are going to focus on the philosophy, moral philosophy aspect of Aristotle here. Aristotle is a Greek philosopher and the student of Plato, developed one of the most influential ethical system in the Western thought. Unlike Plato, who emphasized ideal forms, Aristotle rooted in ethics in empiricism. See, while we were discussing bird view, we had this idea. There are Plato gave that idea of two realities, higher reality and the sensory reality. Plato rejected this idea of sensory realities. Higher reality, that is ethical universalism. There is one truth, and we should work towards understanding the higher reality. This is what Plato told, and Aristotle rejected that. Aristotle, he supported this idea of empiricism. See, don't confuse with empiricism and Epicureanism. In the next video, we are going to talk about Epicureanism. Don't confuse that. Here, empiricism is that uh, I talked about this chart, virtue. One thing, virtue with respect to conscience. It's there, it's your inner voice, virtues. Certain philosophers supported that. And there are certain philosophers or school of thought, they supported that virtues, it can be learned through observation. And some of the philosophers, they told that it can be taught through education. Virtues can be taught. So here Aristotle stick to this idea that virtues can be learned through the observation. Through my real life experience, I can learn things, I can understand what is moral and what is immoral. So Socrates, he told that it is inner voice. Virtues are already there. It has to be there. It is conscience. It is inner voice. But here, Aristotle's point of view is different. Here, he supported this. He emphasized on the idea of empiricism. It means that these values, these virtues, it can be learned through the observation also. It can be learned through the experience also. This is what his point of view. So Aristotle rooted ethics in empiricism, human psychology, and observation realities in day to life. Day to day life, my knowledge and my sensory reactions, my sensory understanding, I can understand what is right and what is wrong. And his ethical philosophy is known as virtue ethics. All the three are virtue ethicists. They precisely focused on your decisions, your actions should be based on these virtues, and built on the idea that the purpose of human life is to realize one's potential as rational beings. Now, there are some of the aspects you need to remember with respect to Aristotle. The first is teleology of nature. Teleos is, it means that end. See, for every human beings, whatever the activity we does, there is a end goal. And me as a human being, it is my responsibility to understand this end goal. And ethics is nothing but the study of how humans can fulfill their teleos end goal. I have certain end goal, and ethics tells you to fulfill that end goal. And how do you fulfill that end goal? Understanding the end goal, the path to follow this end goal, and how do the way you fulfill your teleos. All these things were dealt by Aristotle under teleology of nature. Every activity has a purpose, and especially if we are fulfilling our end goals, he precisely mentions that that has to be through the rationality. Socrates talked about rationality, Plato talked about rationality, Aristotle also talked about rationality. Again, this idea of this rationality again comes back in 17th and 18th century, also moral rationalism. There also again it comes back, the core idea, it is going to repeat that time also. When a person uses reason fully and harmoniously, they achieve their true nature. Ultimately, ethics, this is what ethics is going to tell. One thing, you understand what is your end goal, what is the ultimate purpose of your life. In order to achieve that, you have to follow certain way. What is the way? The way is that rationality. So this is teleology of nature. And then the second aspect is, he talked about one concept, that is eudaimonia. Happiness as the ultimate goal, eudaimonia. It means that, see, as an example, you are preparing for civil services. What is the reason behind it? If you somebody asks you what is the reason behind it, you might say that it's my dream to become an IAS officer. Then the question comes, why? Why? It means that it gives an opportunity to work for the people. Then comes why. It means that maybe my desire to work for the people, my parents' dream or desire to give something back to the society or the country. Again, if the question goes on why, ultimately what it leads is happiness. So every action of our life, every activity, if you ask why, ultimately the end goal, ultimate goal is happiness, the ultimate satisfaction. Happiness, it's not that momentary happiness, it is the ultimate satisfaction. That is nothing but eudaimonia. So he gave that idea of eudaimonia. So Aristotle uses the word eudaimonia, which is richer than the modern word happiness. Beyond that happiness, it's you can tell it as, you can mention it as an ultimate satisfaction. So here, according to eudaimonia of Aristotle, it means that flourishing, it is their contentment, fulfillment, living well, living virtuous life, and successful human life. So happiness is the ultimate end, because it desires for its own sake. Ultimately, whatever I am doing, the end goal. What is that end goal? Ultimate happiness, ultimate satisfaction. So all the other pursuits, wealth, status, pleasure, are means to achieve eudaimonia. So whatever in that journey, whether wealth, status, pleasure, whatever I want to have, everything I to the end goal. End goal is the ultimate satisfaction. End goal is the eudaimonia. Hence, the purpose of ethics is to understand how to live this fulfilled life. So, you want to reach to the state of eudaimonia. Ethics tells you how to reach to the eudaimonia, how to have a successful human life, how to have a fulfillment, how to have a flourishing life. This is what ethics tell you. That here is you, here is your ultimate end goal of your life. There is a journey. In that journey, ethics comes into the picture. Ethics make that journey flourishing. Ethics make that journey virtuous. So this is a second concept uh, discussed by Aristotle. And the next, virtue ethicist, you know that all the three are virtue ethicists. Aristotle also virtue ethicist. But here Aristotle mentioned that virtue is not like one isolated incident. It is not that. In some incident you have showcased this virtues, showcased this values. That a virtue concept of virtue is not that. Virtue is that you have that in inner self, you have this value of virtue inside you. It is not that one incident or one situation you have expressed these virtues, and then after that back to your regular non-moral life. No, that is not the case. Virtuous person is someone who behaves rightly in every situation, and he stands for the right reason. He knows what is right, what is wrong, what is ethical, what is unethical. He stands for right reason, he raises his voice to the right reason, and also he steps, whatever the action he makes, whatever the decision he makes, everything is positive, everything for the right reason and with right feeling, and takes pleasure in virtuous actions. Ultimately, virtues, it's there in your conduct, it's there in your thought process, it's there in your everyday actions, everyday decisions. So virtue is part of you. It is not something different. It is your character. Virtue is your part of it. Virtue is not an isolated act, but a stable character trait developed over a time. Again, empiricism, the idea you can learn these virtues, you can understand what is right and wrong through observations, through experience, through your sensory knowledge. So this is what, this is a third aspect talked by analyzed by Aristotle. And the next is moral education. Moral education, I told you that again, virtues, it can be inner voice, it can be learned through observation, or it can be taught. He subscribed to the second idea, empiricism. He rejected this third process that taught virtue, moral education can be given. He told that virtue cannot be taught by classroom instructions alone. Yes, there are ethical philosophers, they are moral thinkers, they've subscribed to this idea of moral education. But here, Aristotle has rejected this idea that ethics or virtues can be taught by, in a classroom through the instruction. He rejected that. Virtue is cultivated through a habit. I am observing through my understanding, through my knowledge, I understand what is right and wrong. Now I am implementing in my life. So it can be cultivated. And good conduct repeatedly practices. I am practicing it, I am implementing, I am inculcating in my life. So it is getting shaped in my conduct. It is shaping my character. And moral exemplars like role models. I am inspired by these kind of people. They are showcasing all these abilities. I am inculcating these values, and institution, they play a critical role. Thus ethics is a practical in behavior, not merely theoretical. In the simple sentence, moral education, it's not possible. Maybe Aristotle's point of view, he is not going to support this idea of moral education. Yes, through the observation, through experience, you can inculcate, you can develop also. So that is what Aristotle stood for. And then the fifth aspect talked about is justice. So Aristotle talked about two kinds of justice. One is general justice, another one is particular justice. In a simple word, if I have to talk about this justice, justice at the personal level, justice at the community level. So personal justice, social justice. Justice at personal level is personal virtue. Justice at the social level is a social principle. It means that at general justice, here I am a, in my conduct, the way I behave with you, I am ethical in my conduct. I am abiding law. Whatever the government has made rules and regulation, I follow rules and regulation. And with my personal relationship with other person, I am ethical in my conduct. I am not misusing any other person. I am not creating harm to any other person or any other public property. All these things. So I am law abiding. I am ethical in my conduct. In my personal level, in my personal interaction, I am ethical. This is general justice. And when we talk about particular justice, from a social perspective, I support this idea of fairness. I want fair distribution of benefits. I want fair distribution of burdens. If there is a punishment, it has to be fair, even the distribution of punishment also. So, from a social perspective, there are 100 people in my community, and from a social perspective, I want positive things. I want moral, ethical things for my community. My general justice is my personal connection to you. It's positive. I am moral in my conduct with you. And with respect to particular justice, me being a part of this community, I want morality in my community. That is in a simple way of understanding justice with respect to Aristotle. Now, the important thing is the doctrine of mean. This is an important thing you need to remember with respect to Aristotle. Plato, Socrates, he mentioned about knowledge as an important virtue. All other virtues derive from knowledge. This is Socrates, right? Then Plato talked about four cardinal virtues, right? But here Aristotle is also virtue ethicist. He talked about doctrine of mean concept. What is this doctrine of mean concept? Here he expanded this virtues. Socrates was talked about one virtue, and Plato talked about four virtues. But here the number of virtues he expanded this idea. It is not restricted to four or five virtues. A number of virtues can be taken into the consideration, but there is a catch. What is the catch? For every attribute, there are three dimensions. The first dimension, it is deficiency. One extreme. Another extreme, it is excess. And middle, there is a mean. If you are taking decisions from extreme, either from deficiency or another extreme of excess, then your actions are unethical, your decisions are unethical. So you have to take your decision at the center. At the center, it is that the mean. So this is the doctrine of mean. As an example, if I have to give, courage is the mean. One side, deficiency, it is cowardice. Another side, it is recklessness or the rashness. So if your decisions are based on rashness, excess, this is unethical. If your decisions are based on deficiency, cowardice, sorry, that is immoral. Your decisions, your actions should be based on courage. That is the mean. It is, this mean is not that the mathematical mean, the geometrical mean, all it is not that. You need certain understanding, you need certain level of moral understanding, moral knowledge should be there to understand this concept of mean. There is no formula to get into the mean, it is based on your moral understanding. So this mean is relative to person, and this mean is relative to the context. See, when you're talking about relative to person and context, here Aristotle is supporting ethical relativism. Socrates and Plato, they talked about ethical universalism, and Aristotle is talking about ethical relativism. That is another difference between other two virtue ethicists. And virtues require practical wisdom to correctly identify them. And I told you that it is not like some formula you get them in. It is not that, because here moral knowledge is necessary to understand what exactly the mean is. Let's see some of the examples here. And see, courage, one side; deficiency, cowardice; excess, rashness. And for generosity, again, the mean is generosity. If you look at the deficiency, it is stinginess. And if you look at the excess, it is extravagance. And if you look at another example, mean, it is ambition. One side it is sloth, another side it is greed. Both, if your decisions are based on greed, it is unethical. If your decisions are based on sloth, again it becomes unethical or immoral. So your decision should be based on the mean, ambition. There are some of the examples you have been given. Just understand two three go through with two three examples. Understanding concept is important. Ultimately is talking about doctrine of mean. Any decisions taken on extremes, it is not ethical. So your decisions, your actions should be based on the mean. So this is what Aristotle is talking about. And he also talked about unity of virtues. In the Socrates also, I talked about principle of unity of virtues. Either you have all the virtues or you don't have any virtues. So here also it is the same thing. Virtues form an interconnected system. Either you have all the virtues. You cannot say that I have the virtue of temperance, but I don't have the virtue of justice. I don't have the virtue of courage. No, it is not going to happen. All the virtues come together. All the virtues. Either you have all the virtues or you don't have any other virtues. So there is an interconnected aspect is there. So one cannot choose virtues selectively. It is not going to happen. If you are doing that, it means that there is a factor of unethicalness. There is a factor of immorality. And the unity makes virtues all or nothing state. Either you have all the virtues or you don't have any virtues. Though individuals can be different stages of development. So this is what unity of virtues. I think this is it. This is it with respect to Aristotle. We have had a detailed discussion on Socrates. We have had a detailed discussion of Plato and Aristotle also. This would give you complete idea, and this would be sufficient from exam perspective. And see, of course, if you look at the internet videos, or if you go through the materials, a lot of more information, and a lot of examples, all these things are there. But the thing is, from exam perspective, these basic understandings, basic observations are sufficient. So, 5 6 points, the important prominent significant points are necessary, because even you'll be having maybe like 7 or 10 minutes to write an answer for these kind of questions. So you won't be having uh, time also in your hand to write or express entire teachings of all these philosophers. So this much would be sufficient. If you want extra information, always contents are available, materials are available in internet, and you can add that can go for a value addition. So from my side, I think this would be sufficient to answer your question, because a book is I'm releasing a book, the PYQ solved PYQ, and I've seen the questions. So based on questions, based on the contents they've asked in the question, or the requirement of the question, I have made this slides also, made this discussion also, comparing or understanding the questions, previous year's questions. So keeping that in my mind, I've given this content. This would be, I hope this would be sufficient. And thank you for listening. I'll see you guys in the next video, moral philosophy. We are going to take up the we're going to talk about medieval philosophers in the next video. Thank you so much. Have a good time.